When Jesus stands up to preach his first sermon in Luke chapter 4, he chooses a passage from Isaiah 61, and he stands up before his home congregation and says, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor, to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives and recovery of sight for the blind." And when Jesus looks at his home people and tells them that he was called to alleviate poverty and let people out of prisons, they try to push him off a cliff. I kid you not, look it up in Luke 4:29. And from that point, when Jesus is run out of his hometown, Jesus is homeless. He also goes about doing exactly what he said he was called to do. He does give sight to the blind. He does reenact a redistribution of wealth. He heals and dries tears and frees people from their demons, but he doesn't abolish prisons. He doesn't even set a single captive free. Instead, this curious thing happens as he goes about his ministry as a homeless man of an occupied ethnicity in an occupied country. He starts having more and more run-ins with the law. In John's gospel alone, crowds try to stone Jesus twice. He's seen as a public nuisance. Authorities meet to discuss legal and politically advantageous ways to kill him on 4 occasions, and governing authorities attempt to arrest him 3 times before they ultimately succeed. And we all know the story after that. Jesus is arrested, tried on charges of sedition, found guilty, given a death sentence, and executed. The man who said he came to proclaim freedom for the prisoners becomes one himself. We all know the story. But we don't often name it that way. We don't often say we worship a Savior who was a repeat offender, a public nuisance, or as Jen Soring puts it, a convict Christ. But friends, this is the heart of the gospel. That it is from prison, from the site of carceral death, that Jesus enacts the salvation of the whole cosmos. Jesus is not resurrected from any old thing. He's resurrected from state-sponsored execution. This thing he says he was called to do, liberty to the captives, he does it in his own body first. And it only happens after the state has done its worst to him. Salvation history happens in prison. God's ultimate revelation to the world that life will persist in the face of and even after death is enacted at the site of the carceral. What does this mean? I don't fully know. But I think it at least means that we should go to find Jesus where we saw him last. In Matthew 25, Jesus tells us this curious thing that when we feed someone, give them a drink, clothe someone, visit someone in prison, we have done that to him. Matthew 25 sometimes sounds like a good works to-do list, but it is not. It is instead a roadmap, a love note. Jesus is giving you a text, dropping you a pin, telling you where you can go to meet him, reminding you where he lived his life and where you can still find him today. Go where he says you'll find him. But go knowing this, that Jesus went out into the world not to get arrested, but to heal, to free, to feed, to reorganize economic power. But as he came up against those forces that create hunger, poverty, sickness, and incarceration, he too was fully impacted, becoming arrested, naked, thirsty, and executed himself. And so will it be with those of us who follow him. The price of witnessing the resurrection, of being an eyewitness to life in the face of state-sponsored death, is that you have to draw so close to prisons that you start to feel their death-dealing impacts on yourself. Because it is only when you have gotten your eyeballs close enough to see carceral death that you will get to see the God whose abundant life has the power to overcome it.